You see all the little beasts here. I feel like they must have once been humans. So this story, I feel like it tells two parts. One is the story of how Izumo fought back against the Kamis. We created all these divine keys, the edict edges, and then we won the war against the Kamis. But then, price of victory was that we lost our own world. We can try our Hi YouTube again. Hi YouTube. Let's watch. It's time to watch our second Acheron trailer. Myriad Celestial trailer. Oh. Wait, there's more lore after. Chat, we can read the lore after. Do you see this whole... Well, you can't see it right now, but we'll watch it after. There's another story coming. But first, the trailer.
Do you still remember why Izumo forged these blades?
Oh, are we gonna get the backstory from the last story that we read, the last lore? Why?
Because in times past, when the Yao Yorozu no Kami descended here, they wrought death and disaster on this world and its people. To save the world,
we finally see the Oni!
Izumo splintered 70,033 blades.
Is this Acheron back in the day?
Them into the 12 sentinels.
It's the story they told us in the last trailer. The animated short.
The first was truth, forged by the Sovereign of Revelation. It could teach mortals the way of the law and create miracles from the deconstruction of all things.
It is like the key of
the second was
revelation,
sky,
our
forged
divine
by the
keys and
eternal zenith. It could form a barrier from the firmament and prevent the innumerable gods of
Wait, what was this one called? The second one was...
The second was sky, forged by the eternal zenith. It could form a barrier from the firmament and prevent the innumerable gods of misery from passing through. The third was Howl, able to summon lightning to rend the heavens and meteors to rain down divine punishment.
This sword looks
sick. The fourth was Mist, able to break earth and tear cloud with biting wind and rain.
Howl, Mist, Sky.
The fifth was Frost.
These are like
freezing
all
the land in an instant.
This looks pretty sick. All the swords look really sick.
The sixth was Fate, the restless cycle of life and death. Then there was Flare, Thought, Root, Form, Bind, Maw. With those sentinels, we seized on tomorrow's expectation.
12 sentinels.
Winning victory after victory. Until...
And then something...
All of them were broken. The price of every victory was a world in its entirety. And in the end, that entirety was lost. And so Izumo splintered 12 sentinels and forged them into two bearers. The first was Origin.
Wait, two bearers?
The second was End.
Origin?
The world forged 70,047 blades, and only one could save Izumo. But you and I both know the road to salvation does not exist.
Izumo proved from what we read.
There is no trace of tomorrow. Resisting the Kamigami, humanity will eventually become Oni.
Parentheses.
We pawned everything, all for the destruction of two worlds. In times past, Takamagahara, upon which the Kami descended, was surely as beautiful as Izumo. So, do you still remember why Izumo forged these blades?
Blade works.
Because
this is
of
the
a
scene.
lie. An end that never existed. We long since strode into their shadow. Each step forward one that we can never walk back.
It's the tears.
Until the last blade is forged. Not.
Into not? Her tears? It's all the swords on the
fleeting. And yet.
Is it over? And yet, we knew from the last trailer there were 2 planets intertwined around IX, it looks like, the pitch black great sun. We had 2 worlds once upon a time. One was called Takamaga Hara and one was called Izumo. Kami's turned evil. They started descending upon to the Izumo world. They were descending. They got infected one day, and then the Kamis went down, and then we had our first Kami. Maybe it's the Stellaron. That's true. Maybe there were nice Kamis living on Takamaga Hara. And then the Stellaron came to the planet, and then they infected them, and then they turned them into bad creatures. And then they descended upon Izumo. So that I can kind of see that being the reason, given that the Stellaron. So it's all Nanook's fault. Of course, it's the Stellaron. Turns out, I guess we just need to follow Alio's script. Nanook catching strays. It's always the Stellaron's fault of whenever anything goes awry. I suppose that's true. And then the humans rose up, and then that's how we got the second trailer. We killed the giant beasts, and then we used their bodies to make our own weapons. But because the bodies were from the beasts, the weapons that were created probably had like some virus, some curse. And then as we wield those weapons to defeat them, to defeat the enemies, the wielders of the weapons are cursed or become infected, and then they turn into the Onis. It's kind of like, it reminds me a bit of like the Shenzhou situation. Like you seek long life, but in the process you turn into the Mara struck. So I think here it's like a little bit different, but it's like a parallel of we're defeating the Kamis, but in the process we're losing our humanity. To defeat the Kamis, you have to sacrifice your humanity. Because the Onis are like more like evil ghosts. It's not like the Onis in Genshin where they're good Onis. I think here it's implied like the Onis are like a bad thing. You don't want to become an Oni. It's like the Mara struck. So I think that's why it wasn't working. They were winning their victories, but they were losing themselves.
Victory after victory. Until
all of them were broken. The price of every victory was
I think here the price of every victory was a world
broken.
I think this is succumbing. This is like humanity succumbing to. Yeah, the Oni is like the reference to the real Onis in the JP lore. I think this frame is referencing the humanity. If you look at the claws, I think those are like they're like the Onis, the real Onis. I think it's saying the humans are being turned into the monsters. They're pretty much like monsters in here. And they're being dragged down into the muck. They're losing their humanity with each victory. And that's why the world is being destroyed. I thought they were forging 2 swords to like fight against the Kamis. But now I think it's actually, we finished fighting the Kamis and we've prevailed. We killed all the Kamis that descended from Takamaga Hera. But in the process, most of the humans turn into Onis. If you see the hand stretching out. And I feel like at the end when the 2 swords were created, Acheron still had some of her humanity left. And then also like the rest of the world probably got corrupted. And that's why she's fighting the end. Because now it turned into a different battle. Yeah, it feels like whatever happened, however they won, with each victory against the Kamis, the gods, the humans on this world turn into the Onis. And then now she has to fight back. And the end is like the demonic sword now.
But you and I both know the road to salvation.
Here, because in the end she's no longer slashing. She's no longer slashing gods. She's slashing the Onis. All the wielders of the swords turn into Onis, and probably a lot of the population, maybe all the population on Izumo turn into Onis. And then she had to go and just slash them all down.
But you and I both know the road to salvation does not exist. There is no trace of tomorrow. Resisting the Kamigami, humanity will eventually become Oni.
Now these are all the humans. They must have all been humans. Because they're not the gods that were fighting in the beginning.
We pawned everything.
She she was also I think at this point turning into the Oni. She was growing. Yeah, Oni pretty much I think you can interpret as another Honkai corruption, or if you haven't played Honkai, I think it's kind of, you can interpret it as like a Mara struck type of disease. It's pretty much, it feels like where you get corrupted and then you just lose your humanity and then you turn into these mindless beasts type of figure.
Or for the destruction of two worlds.
And then here, that's why
In times past,
that's why Acheron needed to slash the other sword, because the other sword wasn't fighting for them. It turned into like a battle from it's almost like we had the Civil War, we had the World War, and then the World War turned into the Civil War. We defeated the aliens, but then the aliens turned our human world into aliens, and then we had to fight our own world, our own war. That's pretty much like Mara Strike if you haven't played Honkai Impact 3.
Takamagahara, upon which the kami descended, was surely as beautiful as Izumo.
And then both worlds were destroyed in the process. Takamagahara, upon which the kami descended, and then Izumo, upon which the humans descended.
So, do you still remember why Izumo forged these blades?
Because of a lie. An end that never existed.
When we forged these blades, they forged these blades originally in the beginning, probably to think as long as we drove off the commies, we would be able to survive and live happily. But they forged the blades and then they drove off the commies, but in the process they lost their humanity. So it's kind of like they were seeking a salvation that never existed.
We
And in
long
the
since
process,
strode into their shadow.
the world that had the commies got destroyed, and then the world that had the humans also got destroyed.
Each step forward one that we can never walk back. Until the last blade is forged into... Not.
And it feels like this final blade, Acheron was the one that slashed everything. Yeah, it feels like the knot was where it was referenced here in the description. Izumo's history should have been a long flowing river, but it was severed and one cut. All its past and future voided on emptiness's other shore. History suddenly stopped. The existence of the two planets instantly evaporated, disappeared into nothingness. I think when we first saw this part, we thought it was IX swallowing them. But I think it was just a result of Acheron forging her final blade, the knot. When she realized that all this fighting, what were they fighting for? You won the battle against the kami, but you lost your battle against saving your world. Like either way, you weren't gonna win. Either your world was gonna be destroyed by the commies, or your world is gonna be destroyed by yourself turning into Onis in the process of fighting the commies. And they were fighting for naught. So then I feel like Acheron forged this blade, and then she pretty much turned everything into, she poofed everything. It could be one of those like she came to an understanding, and then it's like in Genshin terms she was granted the vision, the power. And then she gained her, she had the little 6 symbols over here too. And it does feel like she gained, instead of thinking at first we were thinking she sacrificed her Oni horns, but maybe it's one of those she actually erased. She turned back some of history. She got some of her humanity back. She lost the Oni horns, but she grew the symbols on her body. Maybe that's where she turned into the Emanator. Her horns became the blade. She had the symbols engraved. Maybe the scene at the very end is actually just to represent that she was erasing. It's almost like erasing history. This is everything that happened from when the commies descended and then our blades were forged. And then we relive this scene right before it disappears. And then I think that's why at the very end of the video she comments, I knew this was a fleeting world, and yet she really wanted to save it. So that's why they replay the scene at the end with all the swords and everything to showcase the battles that took place. But it's really sad because, and she sounds really sad because there wasn't anything she could do.
I knew this world was fleeting. And yet...
Yeah, I think that's why she played this scene at the end. It's kind of like an overview of the history. I knew this world. Oh, but if you notice, does it go backwards? It's not necessarily. We see the little sword pile on the right, and then it scrolls towards the left. But it's not necessarily in order. I think that some of the swords were not in the same order they were introduced. It was just all the swords in here. And I think it's like a glimpse of history before it all got absorbed into nothingness. Maybe that's why Acheron doesn't want to draw her blade. If her blade that she currently wields is still the blade of Nut, probably has some erasure power still. Maybe that's why she is really hesitant to draw her sword in actual or in the current lore. I wonder if it's still implied that her current sword that she's wielding in the Penacony story still is the sword of Nut. And that's why she doesn't want to draw her sword. And that's why she probably was like, she wanted to save Firefly, but if she drew her sword, maybe she would have pooped Firefly for real. Maybe that's why she looks so sad, and she was like, well, I wanted to help. Cause she even went over and then she was really sad, but she couldn't fight. The sword's only ability is maybe erase everything from existence. So she has to be really careful when she draws her sword. Does she draw her sword in the trailer? Oh, I see. And then the sword does come out of the sheath. She did unsheath the sword. She's literally drawn. It's like halfway out over here. It's unclear why the tears fall when she draws her sword. It's possible it's just like a reference to she remembers what happened when she previously drew her sword and what happened to Izumo. It could just be a combination of things. She's crying because of the memories, like she's actually crying. Or it's just one of the costs of drawing the sword.
It's only when the sword is unsheathed that those hazy memories start to become clearer.
Oh, the part where she talks about her hazy memories. I see. It's only when the sword is unsheathed
that those hazy memories start to become clearer.
So maybe it is implied that she remembers. Probably now we know what she is remembering. The Izumo parts that we saw in the Myriad Celestial trailer. And that's why she starts crying to her red tears. It's only when the sword is unsheathed that those hazy memories start to become clear. Maybe there's like a sword within a sword. Maybe there's just two sheaths. On the outside, it's like the purple sword, and she can unsheath it for the purple version. But she has to unsheath it fully for the red version. Swords can't have two sheaths. You just have one outer sheath and then one inner sheath. And then that's how we have the true sword. With underneath it all with the red coating.